Welcome to another edition of INN CEO Talks. Joining me today is Brent Nykoliation, the Executive VP of NextSource Materials, which trades on the TSX under the symbol NEXT and on the OTCQB under the symbol NSRCF. NextSource Materials just announced it has finalized a binding agreement to construct and operate a value-added battery anode facility to produce severinized and purified graphite, which is required in lithium-ion batteries for electric and hybrid vehicles. The partnership is exclusive to NextSource and pairs the company with two well-established and leading companies that process and supply severinized and purified graphite to leading Japanese anode and battery makers, who in turn supply the Tesla supply chain and other major automotive companies. This three-way partnership provides NextSource with a complete turnkey anode facility that is an exact duplicate of the facility that is currently processing value-added, severinized, and purified graphite for lithium-ion batteries by one of the current suppliers to Tesla and other international OEMs. Commissioning of the BAF is targeted for Q4 of 2022. Joining me now is Brent Nykoliation. Brent, welcome, and congratulations on this announcement.
Thank you. Welcome to be here.
This is a big deal, isn't it? We're seeing this move and surge in EV production, and so this is a very important element in ensuring that the auto manufacturers, battery producers have what they need to be able to produce the high quality batteries that are going to be increasingly in demand over the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, no, what we did do and announced is quite significant, but again, we have to back up and also do the first chapter, which is the fact that we've been fully funded to reach production. So our facility is going to be in Madagascar, and we have attracted and secured a very strategic partner, and that is Vision Blue Resources. And that's a fund run by Sir Mick Davis, who's the former CEO of Xstrata. Doesn't need much of an introduction, but he has fully funded our production, so it will be up and running next year at this time, so April 2022. And then through what we have already achieved already in the last 5 years with all the verification of our material, we have now been able to fast track the value added and be able to produce a battery-grade graphite for the OEMs. And we've managed to secure a very exclusive and special partnership already that's well-established and supplied, and currently in the Tesla supply chain, amongst other OEMs as well that service the Japanese OEMs.
Well, that is fundamentally important, isn't it? Not only are you funded to be able to produce, but that you now have a market that you know is going to be there and that you will be supplying, a market that's demanding a high-quality product as well.
Yes, and the product right now in those markets are growing leaps and bounds. I mean, everyone can read about what's happening in the automotive industry with electrification of vehicles, this secular change, as Vision Blue has often said, is happening. It's the decarbonization of the planet. It's the move to electric vehicles to establish that and move towards that strategy. But graphite itself has a very traditional use, and that's in steel making. 2/3 of graphite in the world goes to that purpose. And on top of that, you have now a brand new demand, which again, for graphite being a battery material, you're going to see that huge demand for several battery materials. But graphite is so critical because it's always in the negative side of a lithium-ion battery, which is the anode side, and in very large quantities.
So I guess if we take a look at the election of Joe Biden in the United States and his focus much more on electrical vehicles and moving towards net zero carbon increase by 2050, he's now deemed that these materials are critical, and not only in the U.S. but in all G8 nations. And so this really helps to ensure that there is going to be a long-term sustainable market.
Yes, and again, graphite, along with other battery materials, they are now critical. So they have been critical for some time, but now with national security, with economic essentiality in these countries, you now have, again, this whole move to electrification, and that's causing a lot of concerns, particularly for the United States, where they import 100% of their graphite, they import almost 100% of their cathode material, which is your cobalt, your manganese, lithium, copper and nickel. The States obviously has some of that. But again, you have countries that don't, and Germany being an exact example of that. They have to import all the raw materials, and they do that a very good job of turning out very high quality products in return. But these materials are essential, and right now there is this demand and race to try and secure security of supply for the battery materials, because as these things move forward, there are limited supplies right now for the growth projections that are coming.
What is also the particular advantage of being based in Madagascar help you as far as your relationship with G8 countries and the United States? Because what you're doing is outside of China, and I know that there are issues where the U.S. and other G8 countries are wanting to ensure that they have appropriate and adequate supply of these critical materials from countries that they can say, we know that we're going to have solid trading relationships.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have a deposit outside of China, that's key, because right now there is that strong trend that's happening. It's been developing for the last year or two. It's certainly hitting much more of a fever pitch. But yeah, having non-Chinese sourced material, both for the feedstock and the anode, is becoming a request from the customers who buy graphite. But being in Madagascar is actually special. We didn't choose the deposit; it chose us, I guess, is the essence. But Madagascar is blessed to have one of the highest quality graphites in the world. It's been shipping graphite for over 100 years, very small quantities, and we found a very sizable resource. It's a world-class resource, one of the largest discoveries in the world, and high quality, very large flake. So the fact that we have the Madagascar asset puts us in a nice position in the sense that we are very close to these global hubs where right now electric vehicles are being developed. So most of the material is being sold to the Asian market. 100% of the anode material is developed in China. Most of the assets and all the upgrading and purification, etc., and then the finishing is done by Japan and Korea. So we're in these very, in that high demand area, and just a short shipping route away from these very high end markets for this type of material.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about Superflake.
Superflake. So we actually branded that, registered trademark in North America, Europe, Japan, Korea. And the genesis of that was actually a comment from one of the big off-takers who was evaluating our graphite. And we have characteristics which sets our graphite apart from many others, and that's in the fact that it can expand for consumer electronics and expandable foils. The expansion rates are well beyond the quality and the current specs that are out there. Most deposits don't have jumbo flake or extra large flake. In some cases, if they do, they don't expand to the necessary expansion coefficients required for some of these companies that we're dealing with. So one of the comments came was, you guys have a sort of type of super flake. And it was kind of a joke, but at the end of the day, we thought, that's an interesting comment. And we went out and we trademarked it, and it's now become kind of our calling card of the type of graphite we have. So in Madagascar, again, very high quality graphite. It's always been known for that. But we can get up to very almost near battery grade purities just with simple flotation. The size and quality of the flake being in Madagascar, over half of our deposit is large and jumbo flake, which commands premium pricing. And again, the type of graphite we have can go to every single top demand market. So that's lithium ion batteries, refractories for steel, which is still the lion's share of how graphite is consumed in the world. Graphene we've been tested for, and of course the consumer electronics, which use the high value graphite foils, as well as the fire retardant industries. So those are your top demand markets, and flake graphite, our graphite, will go to every single one of those.
Right. Normally when I have these kinds of conversations, I go, wow, okay, that's fantastic. That's great that you've got this binding agreement, that you're going to be operational by Q4 2022. But in researching your company, I also see that you started and are sitting on world-class vanadium reserve, which is equally impressive. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind taking a little sidebar here and have you talk about that as well, because it is such an essential element in the automaking and steel hardening sector.
Yes, it is. And again, it's also becoming a critical element again in batteries. So vanadium is also a critical material, along with graphite and battery materials. So once again, Vanadium is just like the graphite. It has a very strong traditional established use in the use of steel making. So, I mean, most people realize that vanadium is a strengthener for steel. Every type of tool you have, rebar that goes into buildings to give you super strength steel. It's used in defense and many, many products. The fact that it has that market and all of a sudden has, again, an additional demand on top of that being used in batteries. So we actually began and actually entered Madagascar and discovered vanadium first, and that was over 13 years ago, and then found the graphite second, and ended up developing the graphite because it was just speed to market. We had more interest in the graphite at the time, and certainly easier to bring into production. But that vanadium asset is only 11 kilometers away from our graphite. It's a discrete deposit. It's, again, one of the largest deposits discovered in the world. Very high grade, V2O5, 0.7%. But we have a very unique vanadium as well, where it's a sedimentary hosted deposit. So 95% of the world's vanadium occurrences are titanomagnetite, which means those ones are more suited for the steel side, the ferrovanadium. Ours is more suited for the vanadium redox battery side, so for energy storage. And that's unique. And again, as we see going on right now, there's two shifts happening in the world. It's battery power and it's battery storage. And one of the largest raw materials in a redox battery, a vanadium redox battery, is obviously vanadium, but the second largest is flake graphite. So here we are, blessed with two very large world-class resources of two of the largest critical battery materials that go into a redox battery side by side. So very serendipitous, and it's very strategic for us. But right now, we're focused 100% on getting that graphite up and running. It'll be up and running within the year. And again, moving forward on the value add, and then we'll be focusing as well on the vanadium because there is going to be a very significant usage for energy storage. And right now, redox batteries do have a very prominent role in that, regarded to be one of the top energy storage technologies going forward. You think there's a lot of graphite in an electric vehicle, roughly 300 pounds per 100 kilowatt hour battery. So a typical Tesla Model S will have about 300 pounds of flake graphite in it. But the amount of graphite in these large energy storage batteries is beyond that. And that's exciting.
Well, it's a pretty exciting time for you right at the moment. People who tune into this series of interviews are always asking themselves, okay, is now the time that I should be investing? So when they're asking that question, what's your answer to them?
Well, I mean, first of all, number one, do your due diligence. There's lots of projects out there. Many of them have not got to the stage where you can actually find out what the economics and certain aspects of the project are. Graphite is a very opaque market. It's very difficult to understand what makes good graphite, why someone has a good graphite deposit. I can say that there's a lot of misinformation out there. So do your due diligence. What NextSource has done differently than most other companies, and there's a couple as well that have done very well with us and done the proper things, which is to go out there and do the research, become experts in the space, and then develop the graphite deposit and the project to the way that the actual end users require it to be. So this is exactly what NextSource is doing. Many companies have gone out there and done things too fast, too big, don't have offtakes, haven't qualified their product properly, and they end up failing. And what we've done is a little different. We're starting off small. We've gone and qualified our material with end users. It's taken us now 5 to 6 years to develop the relationship that we just press released with the Tesla supply chain participants. And we have other ones that will be coming out in the very, very near future where we have other offtakes on the other demand sides for graphite. So as investors, I would say stay tuned. The company now is moving very quickly. Now with Sir Mick Davis and Vision Blue as our strategic investor. Sir Mick Davis is the chairman of our company now. He is at the helm and he's accelerating our plans, but the plans have been well laid. So right now we have the means, thanks to Vision Blue Resources, to execute. And right now we will be we will be the next graphite project in production. We'll probably be the next graphite project with a full anode solution. And we are exclusive to have the partners that we have that are in that Tesla supply chain to us. So we can actually give other OEMs, car companies, a full anode solution should they want to investigate and come and see what we can do for them. So right now we've got our hands full. And so it's a very exciting time for us. The company is at that stage right now where we are moving very quickly. So the news flow will be very consistent, probably one press or two press releases, three press releases a month, going all the way into the fall.
Well, I will be watching, and I hope that you'll come back and give us an update later this year, because I'm keen to see how this unfolds for you. You're in a really, really exciting position.
Well, thank you. And the rate we're going, we should be back here probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll have an update. And probably every other month, we should be able to give you guys very, very good insights into what's happening in the developments that are underfoot.
Oh, fabulous. I look forward to seeing you shortly then. Thank you very much for your time today.
Well, thank you.